They open above the Jezreel Valley in Israel, bathed in the golden light of dawn. This plain, known as Megiddo, has witnessed the march of armies from Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, the Crusaders, and even Napoleon. Its soil is soaked with the echoes of ancient conflict. The Hebrews called it Har Megiddo. Today, the world knows it as Armageddon. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a man named John wrote a vision so haunting and geopolitically precise that it continues to captivate scholars and generals alike. Tonight, we hold that ancient map up against the one on your television screen, seeking to understand the prophecy and the reality it may foretell. Truly grasp Armageddon, we must first look beyond Hollywood and popular culture. The Bible's prophecies are layered and complex, spanning centuries and multiple authors. 4 major texts, Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, and Revelation, converge on a single flashpoint, a final coalition war centered on Israel, triggered by global powers from the north, east, and south. Ezekiel, writing in 593 BC, describes a vast military coalition led by Gog-Magog, a northern power, joined by Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, Gomer, and Togarmah. Scholars have mapped these ancient names to modern regions, revealing a chilling alignment with today's geopolitical landscape. Let's break down the ancient names and their modern counterparts. Magog, often identified with Russia and Central Asia, stands as a major military power, closely allied with Iran, ancient Persia. Kush, or Ethiopia, aligns with Sudan and East Africa, regions marked by instability and Iranian influence. Put, or Libya, is a fractured state with ongoing militant activity. Gomer and Togarmah are linked to Turkey and the Caucasus, both acting as regional power brokers. The kings of the East are widely interpreted as China and the Far East, while the king of the South refers to Egypt and the Arab League. These alignments are not mere coincidence, but reflect a remarkable convergence of ancient prophecy and current geopolitics. Decades, the idea of a Russia-Iran military alliance seemed implausible. The two nations were rivals, divided by ideology and competition for oil. But the Syrian conflict changed everything. Since 2015, Russian air power and Iranian ground forces have fought side by side to preserve the Assad regime. Together, they share intelligence, coordinate strategies, and operate joint military infrastructure just 70 kilometers from Israel's border. What Ezekiel called Magog in Persia now exists as a real-world axis, with a network of Iranian-backed proxy groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias, encircling Israel. The geographic encirclement described in ancient texts is now a reality on the 2024 map. Iran's Ring of Fire strategy has created a network of armed proxy groups that surround Israel. Hezbollah in Lebanon possesses an estimated 150,000 rockets. Hamas governs Gaza, launching attacks across the border. The Houthis in Yemen have fired ballistic missiles into Israel, while Iraqi militias have used drones. This encirclement, unprecedented in the modern Middle East, mirrors the coalition described by Ezekiel. The ancient vision of a northern power leading a confederacy against Israel is now echoed in the headlines and military maps of today. No prophecy of Armageddon can be understood without recognizing the regathering of the Jewish people. Ezekiel insisted that Israel must be restored before the final conflict. In 1900, fewer than 25,000 Jews lived in Ottoman Palestine. By 1948, the State of Israel was declared, the first Jewish sovereign state in nearly 2 millennia. Today, Israel is home to over 7 million Jews, making it the largest Jewish population in the world. It is a nuclear-capable military and technological powerhouse, and the most contested land on Earth. The fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision, written in 593 BC, is now a matter of historical record. Ezekiel's prophecy of a return from exile and national rebirth was fulfilled in 1948 with the declaration of the State of Israel. This event marked a turning point in both history and prophecy. The Jewish people, scattered for centuries, returned to their ancient homeland, establishing a state that would become central to global politics and religious prophecy. Israel's rebirth is not just a historical milestone, but a key precondition for the events described in the biblical texts. Revelation 16 speaks of the kings of the East, a power or coalition from east of the Euphrates crossing into the Middle East. For centuries, this seemed mysterious. Today, China's Belt and Road Initiative, the largest infrastructure project in history, runs directly through the region. China has military agreements with Iran, trade partnerships with Saudi Arabia, and a growing naval presence in the Indian Ocean. The ancient Euphrates, passing through modern Syria and Iraq, is now a corridor of conflict and strategic interest, just as the prophecy described. China's influence in the Middle East is growing rapidly. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, China invests in infrastructure, ports, and trade routes that span from the Far East to the Mediterranean. Military agreements with Iran and expanding naval operations in the Indian Ocean signal a new era of Eastern power projection. The ancient prophecy of the kings of the East, crossing the Euphrates now, finds a modern echo in China's strategic ambitions and partnerships across the region. Prophetic texts do not merely name nations, they describe specific triggers for the final conflict. Ezekiel says Israel must be dwelling in safety, in unwalled villages, before the coalition attack. Critics once dismissed this as impossible, but Israel's normalization agreements with Arab states, the Abraham Accords, represent the most dramatic peace overtures in the region's modern history. These developments set the stage for the kind of scenario described in the ancient texts. Zechariah 12 describes Jerusalem as a cup of trembling for all surrounding peoples, a source of conflict that draws in the nations. Jerusalem is the only city claimed as a holy capital by 3 world religions. It is the focus of United Nations resolutions, superpower disputes, and military flashpoints, all within a single square mile. The prophecy's vision of Jerusalem as an immovable rock for the nations is vividly reflected in today's headlines and diplomatic struggles. United Nations Security Council has passed multiple resolutions regarding Jerusalem's status. The U.S. Embassy move in 2018, ongoing disputes with the Palestinian Authority, and the presence of groups like Hamas all contribute to the city's volatility. International recognition remains deeply divided, making Jerusalem a perpetual flashpoint and a living embodiment of Zechariah's prophecy. Daniel chapter 11 describes a recurring conflict between a northern king and a southern king over the glorious land, Israel. Today, the axis of Iran and Russia in the north and the historical Egypt-Arab coalition in the south mirror this ancient dynamic. The parallels between the ancient text and current geopolitical alignments are striking, suggesting that the patterns of history may indeed repeat themselves. Perhaps the most volatile flashpoint in prophecy is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Both Ezekiel and Daniel describe a rebuilt temple as part of the end-time scenario. For nearly 2 millennia, this seemed impossible. The Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 AD, and the Dome of the Rock has stood on the site since 691 AD. Yet today, the Temple Institute in Israel has prepared ritual objects, priestly garments, and architectural plans for a third temple. Political visits to the site have triggered international incidents, underscoring its status as the most contested piece of land in the world. Temple Mount is classified by Israeli law as a holy site under Muslim administration. Access restrictions frequently trigger violence, and the site remains the single most volatile flashpoint in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The tension surrounding the Temple Mount is a living testament to the enduring power of prophecy and the deep divisions that persist in the region. Not all scholars interpret these prophecies in the same way. Evangelical Christians often see Ezekiel 38 as a near-future, literal event, the Gog-Magog war preceding a tribulation period and Christ's return. Jewish scholars may view Ezekiel's prophecies as partially fulfilled in ancient history, with future fulfillment still possible. Secular historians point out that many ancient prophecies were written after the fact, in the style of vaticinium ex eventu, and caution against mapping ancient texts directly onto modern events. Islamic eschatology offers its own parallel narrative, with the battles of Yajuj and Majuj and a final confrontation near Jerusalem. What is truly remarkable is the convergence of these narratives. Across Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions, the structure described by ancient texts, a northern military power, a nuclear-capable Israel, an encircling coalition, and a globally contested Jerusalem, did not exist for 19 centuries. It exists now. This convergence is acknowledged by historians of all backgrounds, regardless of their theological stance. Return to the Jezreel Valley, the plain of Megiddo, as the sun sets and shadows stretch across the ancient landscape. This is the place where empires have come to die, where history and prophecy intersect. The question remains, is what the prophets described a divinely ordained destiny, or a self-fulfilling narrative so deeply embedded in the world's religions that it shapes the decisions of leaders today? Iranian leaders have spoken openly of apocalyptic timelines. Israeli prime ministers quote Ezekiel in parliament. American presidents invoke Revelation in foreign policy speeches. Whether the prophecy is true, or whether it becomes true because enough people believe it is, may ultimately produce the same outcome. The power of belief, when shared by millions and acted upon by world leaders, can shape the course of history as surely as any ancient text. Word Armageddon entered every language on Earth from this valley. For now, it remains a plain, a very old, very quiet plain, waiting. The events described in this documentary are drawn from scripture, historical record, and current geopolitical reporting. This film does not advocate for any specific theological interpretation, but invites viewers to consider the remarkable convergence of prophecy and reality. Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, written around 593 BC, describe the Gog-Magog prophecy, a vision of a northern coalition attacking Israel. This ancient text has been studied for centuries, with interpretations ranging from literal future events to symbolic representations of past invasions. Its influence on both religious thought and geopolitical analysis is profound, shaping the way many view the future of the Middle East. Daniel chapters 11 and 12, composed around 530 BC, detail the ongoing struggle between the kings of the north and south over the glorious land. This vision has been interpreted as both a record of ancient conflicts and a blueprint for future geopolitical struggles. The recurring pattern of northern and southern coalitions vying for control over Israel continues to resonate in today's headlines. Zechariah chapters 12 to 14, written around 520 BC, focus on Jerusalem as the epicenter of the final battle. The city is described as a cup of trembling and an immovable rock for all nations. This imagery has shaped religious and political discourse for centuries, reinforcing Jerusalem's unique status as a city of destiny and conflict. Book of Revelation, chapters 16 and 19, written around 95 AD, introduces the concept of Armageddon, the final battle between the forces of good and evil. This apocalyptic vision has inspired countless interpretations, from literal end-time scenarios to symbolic readings of spiritual conflict. Its language and imagery continue to influence global culture and geopolitics. Abraham Accords, signed in September 2020, marked a historic normalization of relations between Israel and several Arab states, including the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. These agreements have shifted the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, fulfilling some of the conditions described in biblical prophecy and opening new possibilities for peace and conflict alike. Reports from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, between 2023 and 2025 have highlighted Iran's ongoing nuclear program. This development adds a new layer of urgency to the region's security dynamics, as a nuclear-capable Iran could dramatically alter the balance of power and the potential for conflict described in prophecy. United Nations Security Council Resolution 478, passed in 1980, addresses the status of Jerusalem. The resolution declared Israel's 1980 Jerusalem law null and void, and called on member states to withdraw their diplomatic missions from the city. This ongoing dispute underscores Jerusalem's central role in both prophecy and international politics. Temple Institute in Jerusalem is dedicated to preparing for the construction of a third temple. The organization has created ritual objects, priestly garments, and detailed architectural plans. Its activities have sparked debate and controversy, reflecting the enduring power of prophecy and the deep divisions over the Temple Mount. Since 2015, Russian military deployment in Syria has transformed the regional balance of power. Russian bases, naval presence in the Mediterranean, and joint operations with Iran have brought the ancient prophecy of a northern coalition to life in a modern context. These developments are closely monitored by analysts and policymakers worldwide. China's Belt and Road Initiative, as reported by the World Bank in 2024, is the largest infrastructure project in human history. It connects China to the Middle East and beyond, reshaping trade, diplomacy, and military strategy. The initiative's reach into the heart of the region echoes the biblical vision of Eastern powers crossing into the Middle East. The influence of biblical prophecy on modern policy is undeniable. Leaders across the world reference ancient texts in speeches and decisions, shaping public opinion and international relations. The interplay between faith and politics adds a unique dimension to the ongoing conflicts and alliances in the Middle East. Central question emerges. Are these prophecies being fulfilled because they are divinely ordained, or because enough people believe in them to make them reality? The concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy suggests that belief itself can drive actions, shaping events to fit the narrative. This dynamic is especially potent when leaders and populations act on shared expectations. Modern media plays a significant role in amplifying the themes of prophecy and conflict. News coverage, documentaries, and social media all contribute to the global conversation, shaping perceptions and sometimes fueling tensions. The intersection of ancient texts and current headlines is more visible than ever in the digital age. The Middle East remains a region of constant tension and shifting alliances. Flashpoints like the Temple Mount, the Gaza Strip, and the Syrian border are not only military and political hotspots, but also carry deep prophetic significance. Each new development is scrutinized through the lens of both history and prophecy. Proxy warfare has become a defining feature of the modern Middle East. Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis has created a network of influence that extends across the region. These proxy conflicts add layers of complexity to the already volatile situation, fulfilling aspects of the ancient coalition described in prophecy. The presence of nuclear weapons in the region raises the stakes of any potential conflict. Israel's nuclear capability, Iran's nuclear ambitions, and the involvement of global powers like Russia and China create a precarious balance. The specter of nuclear war adds a new dimension to the ancient prophecies, making their potential fulfillment more consequential than ever. The religious significance of the events described in prophecy cannot be overstated. For billions of people, these texts are not just ancient history, but living guides to the present and future. The convergence of faith, politics, and military strategy in the Middle East ensures that prophecy remains a powerful force in shaping events. History shows that patterns of conflict and alliance in the Middle East often repeat. The cycles described in Daniel and Ezekiel, north versus south, coalitions forming and dissolving, are mirrored in the region's modern history. Recognizing these patterns can help us understand both the power of prophecy and the realities of geopolitics. Implications of the Armageddon prophecy extend far beyond the Middle East. Superpowers like the United States, Russia, and China are deeply involved in the region, each with their own interests and alliances. The potential for a local conflict to escalate into a global crisis is ever present, making the study of prophecy and geopolitics more relevant than ever. For many leaders and citizens, faith is not just a private matter, but a driving force in decision-making. References to prophecy in political speeches, policy decisions, and military strategies are common. This interplay between belief and action ensures that ancient texts continue to shape the modern world in profound ways. Despite centuries of study and debate, many questions remain unanswered. Is prophecy a roadmap for the future or a reflection of the past? Can belief alone shape the course of history? These questions linger over the Jezreel Valley and the world beyond, reminding us of the limits of human understanding. As the sun sets over the Jezreel Valley, the plain of Armageddon remains quiet. The world watches and waits, uncertain whether the prophecies will unfold as written or take a different course. For now, the valley is a place of history, memory, and anticipation, a symbol of both the past and the possible future. Events described in this documentary are drawn from scripture, historical record, and current geopolitical reporting. The film does not advocate for any specific theological interpretation, but seeks to present the facts and perspectives as they are. Viewers are invited to consider the evidence and draw their own conclusions about the convergence of prophecy and reality. As the credits roll, on-screen citations highlight the sources used throughout the documentary. Ezekiel 38:39, Daniel 11:12, Zechariah 12:14, Revelation 16 and 19, the Abraham Accords, IAEA reports, UN Security Council Resolution 478, the Temple Institute, Russian military deployment in Syria, and China's Belt and Road Initiative. These references ground the narrative in both ancient texts and contemporary events. The story of Armageddon is not just a tale of ancient prophecy or modern geopolitics. It is a narrative that continues to shape the world, influencing leaders, believers, and skeptics alike. As we leave the Jezreel Valley behind, we are reminded that history is never truly past, and prophecy is never merely future. Both live on in the choices we make and the stories we tell.